Welcome to Private Equity Profits. Clifford Locks is a certified board of director, a trusted confidant to CEOs, C-level exec, and high-potential employees to help them clarify goals, unlock their potential, and create actionable strategic plans. Seth Greene is the nation's foremost authority on growing your portfolio companies with direct response marketing. He is the founder of the direct response marketing firm Market Domination LLC, and he is an 8-time best-selling author who has been interviewed on NBC, CBS, Forbes Inc., CBS Money Watch, and many more. Cliff and Seth interview top players in the financial sector, focusing on private equity firms, venture capital companies, and family offices, discussing developments and trends shaping the industry. These experts will share with you how they've grown their businesses and increased profit, and how you can too. And now, here's your host, Cliff Locks.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Private Equity's Profits Podcast. I'm Cliff Locks, your host, and today our guest is AdaPia Diarico. AdaPia is an investor, entrepreneur, and an advisor who embodies vulnerability, resilience, and enlightened leadership. She's a principal and VP of strategy at Alpha Investing, a real estate private capital network that connects investors to highly vetted commercial real estate opportunities as a respected FinTech entrepreneur who's helped bring real estate crowdfunding into the mainstream. AdaPia is sought after for her expertise in entrepreneurship, leadership, and innovation and capital raising. She's the author of the book, Productive Intuition, Connecting the Subtle, and has a course titled Writing the Self. AdaPia, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited to have you on.
Cliff, thank you so much for having me.
Tell me about your background and how you ended up in real estate investing.
Oh, in a very zigzag kind of a path. So I got started in banking when I was 18 years old. Actually, I understood at a really young age that financial stability, financial independence could give me overall independence. As you can guess, I'm pretty strong-willed and was the kind of child that said, don't tell me what to do, but also very ambitious and also very hardworking. And I really enjoyed financial and investing concepts. So I got started really early, and I also ended up living in Europe for 11 years. My career, it took me a little while to get that going again in the financial sector, just because it was a little bit challenging to adapt to other cultures, especially in Italy where I was living, where it was very unusual, if not impossible, for a young woman of 24 years to have 2 degrees and work experience and want to work in the financial industry. So long story short, I managed to get into a hedge fund in Switzerland. I was there when Lehman went down, actually. And so that was a very formative experience. That particular hedge fund or set of hedge funds was fine, but it was one of the most high stress periods of my professional life. And shortly thereafter, I made a big pivot, a big life pivot, actually. And I left that industry. I left the fund and I went into entrepreneurship. I went into business with my sister in a completely different industry, 180. It was in the art, consumer products, entertainment, licensing industry, where we built a global brand during the recession. And in that naive sense of being a founder of, I don't know what I don't know, people were telling me, you can't do that. And we were saying, yes, we can, just watch us. And we did. And it was really a lot of fun. And it was in that set of years where Kickstarter and Indiegogo started up around 2009, 2010. So we were using Kickstarter, Indiegogo to fund some of our creative projects. So you fast forward a little bit to 2012, 13, I moved to Los Angeles. And I started to get into the networking here of Silicon Beach and venture capital and startups. And I came across crowdfunding through the Jobs Act. So in 2012, Obama signed the Jobs Act, which was intended at that time to make access to capital and access to startups, essentially, but this kind of like giant marketplace. Like this idea was, why can't the regular person invest in the next Facebook? So I thought, well, why can't I turn my sister's fans into shareholders? And so all of a sudden that finance background of mine really perked up. I really understood the concept of it. The shareholder part for equity did not actually become possible for all retail investors until 2016. But in the meantime, I made another pivot in my career where my sister and I kind of split as business partners. We're fine, love each other. It was great, but she went her own way and I went into real estate crowdfunding. So that's how I actually got into real estate investing, was through an entrepreneurial path, kind of following a bit of an intuitive sense of what's next, what's coming, what's exciting. Because when I first heard about real estate crowdfunding, I thought this makes a lot of sense to me. And I originally thought I could crowdfund a house on the canals in Venice Beach because I really wanted to live in one of those homes. Had I done that, I would be very well off today because they were about $3 to $4 million back then. And that was not possible because you can't crowdfund a private residence. Essentially, there's RESPA, so you can't do it. But it got me on that track. I joined one of the very first real estate crowdfunding platforms as a founding executive, as employee number one, launched that company, launched the industry. And then I got into FinTech and I've been in that space ever since. And today I sit on the private equity side of commercial real estate. So it was, like I said, it was like this zigzag path where I came back to my roots of finance and investing, but through an entrepreneurial path.
Let's get a little personal. You've had to face some challenges to get where you are today and embody resiliency. What are the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome, and how did you do so?
I've had a lot of challenges. So I would say leaving my whole life in Europe was a big one, and the resiliency that I had to be able to start over and move and even start a new business when I left the hedge fund and go into it. That was more of a personal challenge that didn't feel like the kind of challenge that is it wasn't like a bad challenge, I guess. I just really took it from really that naive, optimistic place. But I would say that one of my biggest challenges was actually in 2017, 2018, when I was at the pinnacle position of my career. At that point, I was the COO of a different FinTech firm. And I really hit the wall. I was burnt out and I wasn't succeeding. And that was just something that I had not really experienced, my inability to succeed. And it threw me into a few years long journey of really understanding my values and what I'm seeking and finding more of a sense of who I am and who I want to be and how I want to show up in the world, as opposed to the person I thought I should be for others. So it was very much an awakening of coming into my own through a very challenging time when it really felt like my whole life was falling apart.
You can see that resiliency there.
Yeah.
Figuring out what's important. I think it's something.
It was everything.
Right.
Yeah, it was everything. It was really at the core of it. It was, I had to understand what my personal values were and how those were driving my decisions. It was a lot. I call it a dark night of the ego, because my soul was fine, but I really came face to face with this idea of identity and the idea of an external identity constructed for other people's approval. Okay. As opposed to an authentic sense of who I am, and was I willing to come forward in all my parts and pieces, and did I trust that would be okay? And so that's been a really long journey. It's ongoing because I'm always uncovering thoughts and patterns and notions and beliefs that are old, and they're not really what I truly believe inside. And so if I ever see those come up in myself, or if they're reflected in others to me, then it's my constant daily practice of self-mastery so that I can be the best person that I can be. And that allows me to flow with the world. And honestly, like, even it's very spiritual sounding, and it's a different way of being, but it's allowed me to be so successful in the world, like in my career, like in finance and investing. So the two things really go together.
That was very insightful, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
You're the principal and the VP of Alpha Investing. Tell us about Alpha and what does it specialize in, and what is the culture of Alpha's investing?
Yeah. So Alpha Investing is a real estate private capital network. We are, you call us a boutique private equity firm. And so what we really do is we have sponsors or general partners that are multi-billion-dollar operators in multifamily, single family rental, senior living, student housing, affordable housing. And we vet syndicated opportunities. So 3 to 5 year projects, so acquisition, disposition. And we vet and underwrite those opportunities and we make them available to our network of investors. So in a way, it's called syndication. And it's a form of crowdfunding, but without the I would say the pomp and circumstance of crowdfunding, because what it turned into was try to get thousands upon thousands of people into your firm and everybody can invest $1,000. Whereas we don't do that. We're very private. We're very selective about our investors and our minimums are still lower. They're about $50,000 to $100,000 per project. So, we're collectively writing $10, $20 million checks, but our role really is to present our investors who are very busy, who don't have the means or the ability, or nor do they want to underwrite commercial real estate. And we present it to them already underwritten. We facilitate the transaction. We manage the sponsor, the K1s, the distributions, and they get a passive experience with the great returns that come with private commercial real estate. So really that is our role. And our culture is one of relationships being the most important thing. So whether it's with our sponsors, we're recurring capital partners, and with our investors. And it is the antithesis a little bit of crowdfunding, where I call my investors, I text them, they can text me. Whereas anything online crowdfunding is, I don't want to talk to you because it's not efficient, right? It's not efficient to try to scale crowdfunding. But with us, we're very much the opposite. So we're very white glove. And our culture is really based on trust and building that trust with our investors over time. And that basically our business is built on referral because it's working, because we really do. And we do right by our investors.
Trust is the magic.
Yes.
Transparency, the people.
Yes.
And you're doing the hard work, which is the vetting and the continual communications, which I think is very, very, it's positive. You point out that wealth in the right hands can change the world. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is this is really part of something that I had to come to terms with in myself, was that I was at odds in my own ambitions to be successful and have financial independence. Yet I had this conflicting voice telling me that money was bad. And that it was, that you can see a lot of it in the world. It's unfortunate. But I had to come to terms with myself around A, it's not bad. Like, absolutely, it's not bad. And B, actually, and I do this today in my venture investing and my angel investing personally, as an investor, if we're making investments into people that are doing good things, that we are actually changing, we're actually making an impact, a positive impact. And so to me, wealth in the right hands changes the world. It comes from the intention with which we use it, and not it being a means to an end. So there's so many wonderful people that are doing good work in the world. And if they're funded, then they can continue to do good work. And it's also a way of saying, if anyone has even a little niggle of that shame around money, that everyone deserves to have the wealth that they want to have. Your hands are the right hands, and my hands are the right hands. And so it's really, it's been a bit of a personal development journey for me around that concept. And I'm really passionate about sharing that with others, especially with women, because I know that a lot of women they're at odds with the idea of wealth and accumulation and money.
It's interesting. I wonder how the childhoods play a role in how we look at money. Is it a tool or is it something to be afraid of at this point? And it's education. Yeah. And I'm glad you bring a great message forward. Yeah. You're also a proponent of taking creation of wealth into your own hands. How do you advocate for that or facilitate it?
So I do that very much with women in my life and women investors that come to me at Alpha, is that essentially we need to do this for ourselves. Unless one goes into the financial industry or has an interest in wealth creation, we don't get taught about wealth. We don't get taught about debt. We don't really learn how important it is to understand that we need to be in charge of it. Mm-hmm. And the level of confidence and stability and I would actually say peace, at least for me, mm-hmm. when I'm financially set and stable, I'm more productive, I'm more optimistic, I'm more generous. When I've been in situations in my life where I didn't have the financial stability, I was anxious, I wasn't functioning properly, my relationships weren't right, because there's this level of worry. And so, but I had to turn that around for myself. No one's just going to give me a handout. It doesn't just come that way. So to me, wealth creation in your own hands is my way of saying that I believe that it's really important that we pay attention to how we create our own wealth, because it's very empowering to do so.
That leads me to my next question. Empowerment is a big part of your message. Mm-hmm. You authored a book about it called Productive Intuition, from a financial mm-hmm. to spiritual. Mm-hmm. And have structured a course called Writing the Self. What spurred you to produce these, and what are the key messages that you shared in them?
So what spurred me to produce those was very much that period of time that I talked about, 2017, 2018, all the way through to about 2020, when I was going through a personal growth, personal transformation, that dark night of the ego. And this is the book and the process that I learned to achieve a level of self-mastery in myself. So when I was first going through it, I didn't have anybody to talk to. I was ashamed to speak to any of my colleagues, anybody in the business community, because I was going through really a spiritual awakening and I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't think that they would be willing to talk to me, and I couldn't find anyone when I did. And so I went into an exploration of answers for some of the questions that were coming up in myself, but coming from a very rational, analytical mind that likes to understand. I don't want to just blindly believe. There's a lot of information out there about personal development or spirituality that is not grounded in anything that really makes sense. And so what I learned in my journey and what I wrote about in the book is what I learned about integrating what we could call the spiritual side into my business side, and how the two things go together. That's why it's called productive intuition. You would think the two things are completely dissimilar, but they're not. I mean, there's so many examples and there's so much science that shows how we are intuitive, and we use it in business and we use it in our relationships and we use it. And so it's an invitation to really understand how intuition works in you, and how to get to a place that I call inner authority, where you are making your own decisions based on your values and what's meaningful to you and your life intention, and bringing that out into the world through work, through career, through productivity, through being part of society. Because my initial thought when I was going through my sort of that transformative phase was, well, I can't be a business person if I'm a spiritual person. And that's just not true. But that was my experience. And I know a lot of people who have similar thoughts where they think, gosh, like something's not working in my life, and I feel something really strongly that I can't really put into words. It might seem too esoteric. And so they hide it. They hide the fact that, that they have this in them. And in reality, that's a part of themselves that's so important for how they show up in the world. So it's really about integrating the spiritual, intuitive nature of who we are. And the course, so that's the book, Productive Intuition. And then the course is the process that I went through to do that integration, to understand how my past was informing who I believed I should be, and how to take that power back from my past and how to be who I truly am and who I want to be. So the course came out of the book, and it's based on self-reflection and journaling and writing. It's not about being an author. It's called Writing the Self, but it's really using a mythopoetic mindset to really take that power back and to work with it in the present moment.
Tell us where our listeners can participate in your class. In other words, the course that you created. You have it online, or okay.
I do. It's an online course. So it's a self-directed online course that just launched. And if you Google Writing the Self, then it'll certainly come up. That's the easiest way. So that's where you can find it.
Excellent. So the Writing the Self, it's a simple Google search, and you can take it. About how long is the course?
It's an 8-week self-directed course.
Excellent.
And you have lifetime access to it.
Very, very good. Now, I appreciate you sharing that, because I see the goal setting and intuition, it all comes together to flourish, to enjoy the success in life, and take in those skills. And I'll cover something a little later, but it's really about our youth. So all this learning that's taking place and these deeper conversations that can happen with your children, I think is really important, because they're going to shape the future. And it's interesting what's going out there. Capitalism works. It's just a matter we need to teach the children how to use it, and they can be true to themselves. So you have a wonderful message. So I want to salute you for that.
Thank you.
Do you see any major trends shaping private equity or real estate now and into the future?
Yeah, I can talk about some of the trends that we're seeing in real estate. And I'm sure everyone can see that inflation is upon us. And depending on how you define transitory, it's really, there's been asset inflation for years already. So what we're seeing from the perspective of markets and real estate specifically is that we will continue to see asset inflation. And assets in real estate are usually the what wins out in an inflationary environment. And we're also seeing a really big trend into the single family rental space, given the pricing in multifamily.
Okay. Yeah, I had interviewed somebody that was actually building on that at this point. Affordability. Yeah. What are our youth and others and retirees going to end up housing at this point?
Yeah.
Not all of us want to own. At that point in time, they have a decision to make. So I think the rental market is going to be vibrant, going forward. The amenities that people need.
Yep.
Is there anything I have not touched on that you'd like to add, or anything you would like to reinforce?
I mean, this has been great. I really appreciate all the questions and the ability to explain things. And I guess I would, to reinforce something, this has been my big lesson in life, and really why I wrote my book is, trust yourself. We have the answers most of the time, all of the time. Usually we dismiss that intuitive, knowing with a mind that wants it to be different, or, we just have all these different desires. But my big lesson has really been to trust myself and to trust life and to trust that everything works out, especially when we're really connected to that set of values and a life intention. And it's really been life-changing for me to get there. And so I do hope that my message does resonate with others who might be feeling the same.
And our listeners can go out and purchase Productive Intuition from Financial to Spiritual, and it'll help develop that additional education that you need. You have it in you. You just need somebody to help you bring it out at this point, and feel proud that you took the time to learn more about yourself. Success is not an accident. It's a plan and execution at that point. So we all have a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well said. We all have it in us. You're so right. It's the action. It's the action piece. And it's the willingness to put in the work of doing that personal work. And then it naturally radiates in the work that we do productively in society, and in our relationships.
Because it takes strong teams to create the success, and how we understand ourselves and we interact with the team around us at this point, and creating that collaborative environment. I think it's the foundation of real strong friendships, business relationships.
Yeah.
I enjoy sharing feedback from our listeners. I continue to receive warm thank yous for advocating on the benefits of creating paid internships, co-ops, and summer jobs that provide vibrant learning opportunities for our youth. It's a wonderful recruiting tool as an internship program provides an opportunity to hire a known and mentor them into talented executives. I think we can agree the best leaders are great teachers and mentors. Please consider adding more women to participate in your unpaid internships. Each of us can make a positive contribution and change the lives of our young people for the better. And it personally feels great. As we're in fourth quarter, please talk to your team to budget for these investments. AdaPia, thank you so much for being here with us today. You have a unique model for real estate investing that we can learn from. Your message on empowerment is powerful and important as well. You're a positive force in your space. Thank you for being here and sharing your story. I'll share your company's web address, alphai.com, which is spelled ALPHAI.com. Again, that's ALPHAI.com. AdaPia, would you like to share your contact information with our listeners?
Yeah, thank you, Cliff. And thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor. I would say people can reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's going to be the easiest way to get a hold of me, or AdaPia@alphai.com. I really enjoy connecting with people on LinkedIn. It's the easiest thing in the world to just type in ADAPIA and I will come up. So really looking forward to connecting with your listeners.
I want to thank our listeners. I look forward to being back with you shortly for another episode of the Private Equity Profits Podcast. This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC.